Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director. Good to see you. There's an extraordinary article, I believe, from late last year in the New Yorker that speaks to China's rise coinciding with an American retreat from the globe. And I think we've all seen that as we've traveled the world, that the presence that the United States used to have just simply isn't there, and other countries are taking advantage. This article in part describes a relatively routine meeting of the WTO in which they were negotiating trade rules for agriculture and seafood, something that the United States used to have a big role at. And it quotes someone in attendance as saying, for 2 days of meetings, there were no Americans, and the Chinese were going into every session and chortling about how they were now the guarantors of the trading system. The article makes the case that Trump is China's biggest strategic opportunity. I've seen this, we've all seen this at multilateral meetings that we used to see major U.S. administration presence. There's virtually no presence, and other countries are taking advantage of that. What do you think about the scope of our presence at some of these rule-setting meetings, and what are your plans for the future?
Senator, we need to be there. We need to be active. We need to be capable. We need to be value-added. We need to come prepared to engage and work for America's interests in these multilateral discussions that you're describing for the, I think this was WTO that was in this article. Sounds like we shared that sentiment. I couldn't tell you why we weren't there. I don't know if it was the absence of people or the absence of focus. I view those as important places to get the international rule of law that's in accord with our view and not the Chinese view. In that particular instance, you have concerns, and I will do my best to make sure that we're there and we're capable.
Appreciate that answer. I want to get a little bit of a clarification with respect to an answer that you gave Senator Menendez at the outset, coming back to this meeting with the President on March 22nd. Senator Menendez asked you whether there was a discussion about steps you could take to try to frustrate the investigation. And you said that I don't recall what the President asked me that day. Is that your testimony, that you don't recall what he asked?
Yes, and I want to be expressed. I don't recall if he asked anything that particular day. I know the date. I know the meeting to which you're referring, and I don't recall the specifics. And I have answered every question about that meeting and others.
I asked the question because you answered two different ways. You said, I don't recall what he asked me that day, but then you also said he has never asked me to do anything that I consider inappropriate, and those are not consistent.
Those are entirely consistent, Senator. If he asked me to do something appropriate, I'd remember.
Let me give you another chance at a different question. Senator Coons asked you in an earlier round whether you agreed with the President's characterization of the Mueller investigation as an attack on America, an attack on all we stand for. I don't understand why your participation in some of the elements of that investigation would render you unable to tell us that you don't believe the investigation is an attack on America or an attack on all we stand for. I don't think it compromises any of the work that the CIA did or does in that investigation. So I think it's really, I think it'd be really troubling if you couldn't say here today that you don't believe that the Mueller investigation is an attack on America. So I want to give you a second chance at that.
Senator, give me a third chance. These are complex legal issues that special counsel is involved in. I've done my best as CIA director to separate each and every element of that. It is a minefield, Senator Murphy. I want to be on the far side of the line with making sure that I don't create challenges for the special counsel's office, for the two legislative committees that are engaged in this, and so with all due respect, I think stay away with things that relate to the special counsel as where this is about anyway.
By refusing to condemn attacks on the special counsel, I mean really over-the-line attacks that aren't shared by Republicans here in Congress, you are frustrating the work of the special counsel because you're associating yourself with some very poisonous political attacks.
Senator, I have worked diligently myself, and I have put demands on the team that works for me to go out of our way to make sure we were delivering for each of those 3 investigations. And it is difficult. They've asked for complex information that was classified. We've shared information that goes well beyond what has previously been shared, and we've done so with the aim of ensuring that the special counsel and the Senate Intelligence and House Intelligence Committee have the information they need to conduct their investigations. And you should know we'll do that today and tomorrow. And if I'm confirmed at the State Department, we'll do it there as well.
In the time that I have remaining, I want to come back to the authorization question in Syria. You said you believe that the president has the authority to strike Syrian forces. What is this? What statutory authorization do you draw on to come to that conclusion?
Senator, I believe that the president has that authority. He certainly has it under Article 2 of the Constitution.
What's the limiting factor then with respect to Article 2 powers if he can strike Syrian forces with no existing statutory authorization?
Senator, there are reams of law review articles written in answer to that very question. It's a highly fact-based analysis. There are scores of attorneys strewn throughout the CIA, throughout the State Department, throughout the White House, throughout the Justice Department.
Well, give me one limiting factor.
Yes, Senator, I would, if you make a commitment, right? If you make a commitment that would be traditionally viewed as a classical case for war, then the Constitution so requires. This has been a tussle between the executive and legislative branch for an awfully long time, and you know my views. I think it was Senator Kaine who said that coming from the place that you do and on the congressional side, have deep respect for what it is that you all are looking for.
So normally a limiting factor would be an imminent threat or an attack on the United States. And
right, there's a very definition in the War Powers Act, right? There's a statutory definition that's contained there as well. I can't recite it jot and tittle today, but there's
it's an attack on
it's
an attack. The War Powers refers to an attack on the United States. There's been no attack on the United States from the Syrian regime, correct?
Senator, that's correct.
And there's no imminent threat of attack on the United States from the Syrian regime.
Yeah, Senator, I'm just trying to be very careful. Yes, I think that's correct.
At the end of my time, but I might want to follow up on this. I don't think we're at to the bottom of this question yet. Thank you.
Senator, I'm trying to, you're asking me today to conduct complex legal analysis with legal conclusions. And so I know it's important, and so I'm trying to do my best. I'm at the same time trying to make sure that I don't have some statement I made that I parsed the language.
I understand, but to the extent that there is not an identifiable constraint on Article 2 power, then we are all out of the business of declaring war.